Imagine if your company thrived with new ideas because everyone was empowered to innovate. Imagine if your company was insulated from disruption with new revenue streams. Imagine if your company joined the ranks of the world's most innovative companies like Apple, Amazon, or Netflix. Just imagine. With a thriving culture of innovation, I believe this is all possible. But innovation is hard. It doesn't just happen. It takes strategy, discipline, and intentionality. And if you want a thriving culture of innovation, you have to make it happen. Today, I'm going to give you 8 building blocks that can help you build a thriving culture of innovation. I'm going to talk about structure, people, process, taxonomy, programming, communication, thinking frameworks, and space. And if you do all of these well, you will have the keys to success to build a thriving culture in your organization. So let's get started. Building block number 1 is structure. You want to build a culture where it's everyone's responsibility to innovate. I've worked in 2 structures of innovation, centralized and decentralized, and I'd like to talk to you about both of them because both have their pros and cons. So let's talk about decentralized first. This is a structure where it's a specific group of employees who create, manage, administer, and facilitate innovation for organization. Sometimes people call these like little think tanks or innovation groups. And there's some pros to a model like this. First of all, you have governance. So if you've created the group, you have a leadership structure or some sort of structure that manages what this all looks like. And this allows you then to be able to understand what's going on from an innovation point of view in terms of what projects are happening, where they are in the life cycle, all those types of things. And so you can have this sort of overwatch of what's going on, which leads to the next point of accountability. When you have a governance like this, you can hold your team, these employees that you've hired, to follow certain things. You can ask them for certain deliverables at each part of the life cycle of innovation. You could have stage gates where you have these checks that happen throughout the life cycle. And at those points, you could decide, yeah, it's good to go, on to the next stage. I think we need to rework right now. Maybe we should just actually stop this work altogether, or maybe we're just not ready for this right now and just sunset it, pause it for some time. So with an accountability structure, you can then sort of make sure that it's meeting the metrics or the expectations that your leadership structure wants. The other pro is that there's less training. So you can hire the skill sets that you want for the specific group, right? If it's for innovation, you want people that are creative, people that think outside the box, that can push boundaries, people that are resilient, those types of things, you can hire for those skill sets. So there's really less training involved unless there's specific things that you need for the group in your structure. Now, the 2 cons are this, and the first con to me is the biggest problem or challenge with the centralized model. You have the potential for a large impact to the culture of innovation from a negative perspective. And the reason why this is when you have a specific group of employees focused on innovation, that means that all the other employees, that's not their focus. It means that they may not have that responsibility, the drive, the ownership to want to innovate in their roles. And they could easily say, Leo, you're the innovation guy, you're in this innovation group and it's awesome, but I'm over here in department A and I'm focused on this. So great that you do your work, but I got to do my work. And so the ability for innovation to influence every part of your organization could potentially be stifled and stifled quite largely. So you want to be really careful about that in a centralized structure. The second con is you'll need more headcount and resources. This is just a fact of the matter. You have a specific group of employees that are doing this. That means you need the budget for their salaries and you need desks and all that for them to sit together if you're in a co-located space. So things to consider if centralized is what you have or what you're considering. Now let's talk about decentralized. And this is the model and the structure that we practice at Chick-fil-A. It's a structure where it's everyone's responsibility to innovate in an organization. And I want to just pause on this for a second. This means that every employee in every department are encouraged to push boundaries and think outside the box in the seat that they sit in. This means that you can impact your business with innovation in every single area. And that is so, so powerful. When it's everyone's job to innovate and not a select few, the likelihood of innovation in your organization is much higher. you have a much higher chance to create this strong culture of innovation. And that's the first pro. The second pro is you need less headcount and resources. If it's everyone's responsibility, then you don't need that many people to actually kind of like facilitate and manage it. I think you need some, and I'll talk about this, but it's a lot less than you would in a centralized model. The cons, however, are the opposite of what the pros are from centralized. So there is this lack of governance potential. If you don't have still some sort of way to sort of manage or structure or watch what's going on from an innovation perspective, that means that people could be doing innovation without your knowledge. They might be doing innovation in ways that you maybe not want. They might not be following the process that you've established or the life cycle the way you wish. They might be skipping things. You just don't have that oversight, that overwatch of what's going on. And then second is this lack of accountability potential. So if you don't even know what's going on, how could you hold people accountable to following the structures that you want, that you need, or the processes or the checkpoints? So there's a potential lack of accountability. And then last, you need to have more training. So if you've said that, hey, everyone, you're an innovator, this is great news, right, by the way. But if you said that to everyone, how do you know that they actually know how to innovate? If I've hired someone with a different skill set into a different role, then it's a really bold thought to think that they know how to innovate. So you want to make sure that you have training in place so that they know how to innovate well. So I actually think that the best model for innovation, structure-wise, is a hybrid approach where it blends together the pros of both centralized and decentralized together. And what you get from this is a strong culture of innovation, less headcount and resources, governance, and accountability. And so this blended structure, to me, is the best way to do innovation. And so my question to you is this: what structure will you choose? Now let's get to building block number 2, which is all about people. At Chick-fil-A, we have 3 groups that help support this thriving culture of innovation that we have. And we have a dedicated team. I'm on this dedicated team. We're called Enterprise Innovation. And we have the decision-making authority to help advance innovation at Chick-fil-A. We are composed of 3 full-time staff, and this is our sole job. We're thinking about innovation all the time, thinking about how we can make it better. We're thinking about new tools and processes and all those things. We're always thinking about innovation. Some of our focus areas include strategy development. So how might Chick-fil-A, from a strategy level, implement innovation? We consult and facilitate teams and projects through the innovation journey. And we're essentially like a little internal consultancy. So teams can come to us and say, hey, I'm working on project X, need some help. What would you say from an innovation best practice, or what should we be considering? We consult on those things. And then we step in to also facilitate if the teams would like it. We'll design the workshops and we'll facilitate in the best way that we know how to make the projects get to their goals as quick as possible with the best tools that we know from an innovation and creativity point of view. We're innovation enablers. So a lot of my role is involved with building innovation culture. How do you develop that culture? And it's through things like programming, events, those types of things to really enable innovation well. Next, and I talked about training. Training is really important in this decentralized structure that we're in. So we have courses that staff will take to learn about what innovation is all about. Next is focus areas called a group called Innovation Coaches. And I'll talk a little bit more detail about that later. And then Hatch. Hatch is our innovation center. It's a 30,000 square foot facility, and it's under the governance, the management of enterprise innovation. What goes on there, how it's structured, all the type of the use cases, all of that. The second group of people are a group of fabricators. We have a group of fabricators that actually help build and make ideas come to life in tangible ways. These are resources that we have that have the skill sets and abilities to make ideas come to life in tangible ways. And this is awesome. So if you had an idea, you could come to our fabrication team and say, hey, I want to build X. I don't know how to do it. Like, how do I put this? How do I actually physically make this come to life? They can help you because they have skill sets on everything. These are artisans, they're craftsmen, they're designers. They have all the skill sets that really can allow ideas come to life. And this is really important. So interior design, graphic design, photography, videography, prototyping and fabrication, metalworking, woodworking. These are the trades that we have that enable ideas come to life here at Chick-fil-A. And then the third group of people that we have are what I just referenced, innovation coaches. These are innovation champions who advocate and help the organization apply innovation. And they are critical to our decentralized model. We say that they're the lifeblood. And these are people that are passionate about innovation. They think outside the box, they know the innovation process well, and these are embedded resources throughout various departments at Chick-fil-A. We actually have 65 coaches. And these are people that sit in these departments that can hear conversations that enterprise innovation wouldn't hear and become this, what I like to say, bridger of worlds. They know their department and their world super well, but they know innovation really well, and they can bridge those together to make it meaningful for their departments. And because they're there, they have, like I said, they can hear conversations that we never would have, and they can help influence innovation in ways that we can't. And so it's a really, really powerful model. And it's also a passion outlet for coaches. Our coaches love innovation. They love doing this. And so for some, they're not in roles that are as creative as they would like. And so this is a way for them to be able to exercise these innovation gifts and creativity gifts that they have. So this is a really, really powerful group of people that we have at Chick-fil-A. So who will help implement innovation in your organization? Let's talk about building block number 3, which is process. At Chick-fil-A, we have a 5-step version of design thinking that we call our innovation process. And the innovation process is how our company implements innovation. So you get from some theoretical to like, how do you get the nuts and bolts? Like, how do you actually do this thing? So 5 steps to ours: understand, imagine, prototype, validate, and launch. Our staff know these 5 steps, and they know what they mean, and they know how to get started in it. And to reinforce this, we have training on these 5 steps of innovation. It's actually required for our new staff to take a class and to learn about what these 5 steps are, learn what they mean, and learn what resources are available to them so they can actually do innovation. Our innovation process is deeply embedded into our culture. Innovation projects are actually categorized by what part of the innovation process they're in. For example, there's projects in Understand, there's project in Imagine, and so on. And project leaders actually plan their schedules around how much time they think they'll need for each stage. They even, when we consult, they even ask us, hey, Leo, how long should we be spending in Understand and Imagine, and so on. And so it's really an integral part of our culture. We also even hold sessions according to our innovation process. So we have actually sessions called Understand sessions, and we have sessions called Imagine sessions. So the process is really integral into what we do. So how would you leverage an innovation process or design thinking to build your culture of innovation? Building block 4 is taxonomy. Establishing a common taxonomy around innovation is very important to build your culture. You can think of taxonomies like a dictionary, like what are the words and meanings that you want for innovation? And you want to define these words and meanings so that everyone has the same understanding, clarity, and consistency when they talk about and apply innovation. And some words that you could consider for your taxonomy could include innovation. What does innovation mean anyway? Creativity, incremental, breakthrough, and transformational innovation, failure, success, pilot, and test. They sound like really common words, but people use them in different ways. So establishing that nomenclature, that common use for it is really important. It gives a mental framework for your employees when it comes to talking about innovation. And for us at Chick-fil-A, our taxonomy is actually really critical to our culture. So when we talk about innovation, we know exactly what each other means. We know what stage there are in the process. We know what challenge and work is involved in each stage. And for people like me on enterprise innovation, for innovation coaches, we know how we can help. If you're like, Leo, I'm in Imagine, I already know. I'm already in that mindset of like, okay, I know what I can do to help. I know that you're looking for brainstorming, you're looking for ideas. It allows me then to be able to serve my clients better from an innovation lens. So what taxonomy will you create to create this consistent mental framework for innovation? Let's talk about building block 5, programming. Programming can have a huge impact on your culture. What types of opportunities are you providing your employees when it comes to innovation? I believe that programming can do 4 things. It can shape mentality, it can teach principles and techniques, it can encourage networking and collaboration, and it can build energy around innovation. And all four of these things are really important. Let's get into these in more detail. So shaping mentality, what's this about? It's about fostering the innovation mindsets that you want in your organization. It's about how people will think about innovation. So this isn't all inclusive, but these are just some things that I believe are important when it comes to mentality. Things that, embracing risk. This is really important, and I'll dive in more deeper on this one. Pushing boundaries, iteration, having this constant mindset of changing and developing and getting feedback and looping that back in. Iteration is such an important mentality to have when it comes to innovation. Next, you want to be able to teach principles and techniques. And this is around equipping employees with the tools to do innovation. So when you have the right mindsets, then you want to actually do innovation. So this could translate to events where you're teaching your employees around maybe research techniques or brainstorm ideation techniques, or giving them prototyping skills, actually hands-on tools to actually build with, and more. You can also use programming to encourage networking and collaboration. I think collaboration is a pivotal ingredient to drive innovation in any organization. And so you want to provide opportunities where you allow others to meet people, share their work, get feedback, and collaborate. And you can do this through events like mixers. Just get people together, hang out, socialize, get to know other people in departments, their strengths, what they're working on. It's a really good tactic to enable this. Or even hand selecting teams. For project teams, you could select people that maybe normally wouldn't come together so that you have diversity of thought. So there's ways in which you could do this from a programming perspective. Maybe use the mixer as a way to hand select teams. And last is building energy. This is all around generating excitement and momentum around innovation. I think innovation is awesome. I'm so excited to do innovation and the work that I do. And I'm so inspired when I see others doing the same thing personally. And so we want to celebrate the small, the medium, the big wins, and everything in between. We want to build this energy around like, this is exciting. We're actually getting the opportunity to transform the future of our companies with innovation. This is awesome. So celebrate everything in between. If you get a client signed or a contract signed with a startup or a vendor signed, those are important parts of the journey. And of course, the big wins when you've launched a project, that's a cause for a huge celebration. At Chick-fil-A, once a year, we celebrate all the innovation projects that have launched for the year. And we have a big deal, make it a big deal. We have speakers, we got food, music, the whole thing. It's an event, and people want to come to this. And that's what you want to build. You want to build this energy. You want to leave employees wanting more. You want employees to be like, hey, I want to be part of that launch celebration next year. I want to be someone that launches someone and be recognized for it. There's so much fun things you can do with programming and building energy. And when you're considering programming, think about the different generations that we have in our workplaces today. We can have up to 5 different generations in our workplace. The silent generation, boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. Each of these generations have different values. And depending on who you're inviting, you want to consider different tactics, because what means something to the silent generation could be something completely different for Gen X. And so you consider those things as you're planning your programming. Maybe you have events dedicated to certain generations, or if it's an event for all, then maybe you have something that appeals to each one. So think about the different generations when you're thinking about programming. I'm going to share with you what I've done at Chick-fil-A in terms of programming. Some of these have been really helpful to create that mindset. Some of these have been helpful to create the networking. Some of these have been helpful to equip with tools. And so let me just talk about each one. First one is TED Talks. I do not give TED Talks. I just pick TED Talks that I think are interesting, that are inspiring, that help build those mindsets that I talked about. And so once a month we get together, hold these TED Talks at Hatch, our innovation center. And it's just a 45-minute meeting. The TED Talks are generally 15 to 20 minutes. And then we have a moderated discussion that I lead to talk about it. What are we thinking about? How do we apply this in our role? How is this pushing you forward? Super low hanging fruit. I would encourage you. This is the easiest programming you can do because someone else already created the content. Next one is improv innovation. I kind of merged this into experiencing innovation, but it was leveraging all the amazing principles of improvisation and applying that to innovation. If you've never thought about this, improvisation has so many concepts that directly apply to innovation. And I leveraged this as a tool for us to experience innovation. I changed the name because improv kind of scares some people away. Um, but I changed it to experiencing innovation so that people could say, oh, okay, what does that mean? So when experiencing innovation is all about this sort of hands-on workshop where you get to feel what it feels like to, as an example, embrace risk or to support others. And I use improvisation not as the only way to experiencing innovation, but a way. And so these are really hands-on workshops that people feel these methodologies and these mindsets and these mentalities in a safe way. Prototype 101 is a class that you learn how to prototype. So it's exactly what it says. It's here's how you learn how to cut with an X-Acto knife, or here's how you learn how to glue with a glue gun or solder. They're very practical hands-on things. Here's how to use a 3D program so you can use a 3D printer. These are really practical workshops where people then get equipped to be able to prototype on their own. And again, if they don't want to, they have that fabrication team that I mentioned, but this allows them to actually do it themselves. And I think when you prototype, when you build it yourself, there's a lot of learning that really comes with it. So I encourage people to prototype themselves if they have the skill and the time and the resources to do it. And then I talked about these events to encourage network and collaboration. And I held an event called Jazz in the Courtyard I think it was one summer. And so we have a courtyard in Hatch, I call it the courtyard. And I invited jazz musicians to come play some jazz. And it was just a mixer. So people got to listen to some awesome jazz music. They had some coffee and donuts. And then it was just a social event where people could mull around and meet new people and get to know each other. And so these are events that you could consider, these types of events, to really create that thriving culture of innovation. So what events will you create to help develop innovators and build a culture of innovation? Building block number 6 is communication. Communication is critical in shaping your innovative culture. Your innovation team or your innovators can be doing some really amazing work, but if you're not out there sharing your stories, nobody will know about it. Communication keeps energy and excitement around innovation, and it helps it be top of mind for your employees. Remember that they're doing other things, so it's not constantly at the forefront for them. So find existing communication channels in your company and leverage those opportunities to share your story. Think about the best forms of communication to get out the word about your message. And one strategy to do this is to think about innovation like a new product release. How would you go market and communicate it? At Chick-fil-A, we use various forms of communication to inform our employees of what's going on. We use a employee-wide email that goes out every single Tuesday to inform our staff of what's going on around innovation. We advertise our events and updates on what's new, those types of things. We have an internal social media platform that we push news to help stimulate thinking. We use videos to capture stories about our work and work of what's going on in innovation, as well as event recaps and highlights. We leverage our company intranet, our website internally to, again, advertise what we're doing. We've leveraged digital screens across campus to promote our work or show videos. We've even used sticker clings on company shuttles to advertise our larger events. So get creative and create a communication plan for innovation. Use whatever tactics necessary to get the word out. And I do really encourage to leverage those existing communication channels so you're not trying to communicate to people in ways in which they're not used to. But it's also okay to think about like kind of guerrilla style marketing, to show up in maybe the cafeteria with posters or little stand-up cards or whatever. Get creative with it because you know, just like in marketing, we get used to messaging the same ways through the same channels. So sometimes it's fine to disrupt those things and think about new ways of doing that. But it's really just, how are you going to think about sharing your story of innovation? What communication channels and tactics will you leverage? Let's move to building block number 7, thinking frameworks. I'm going to dive into each of these 5 in more detail. So first, you want to value collaboration. Collaboration drives innovation and creativity. I can't stress this enough. It's so important. It encourages the discussion and the exchange and reinterpretation of ideas, which can lead to new perspectives and new outcomes. And these new perspectives and outcomes are probably unexpected and probably will be more innovative. When you share your ideas with someone else, you will always get a new perspective about something. And so often we collaborate with people that are near us in terms of project teams, maybe someone that sits near us, but you really want to think about expanding that collaboration, which leads me to my next thinking framework, which is intentionally diversifying. So you want to look for diversity of thought, skill, experience, background, culture, gender, and age. If you can get this type of diversity, the better. The more you can do this, the better. I think all of these are essential ingredients for innovation because it increases our creativity. So encourage your employees to add diversity in their meetings and their work groups. I think sometimes we might do this in a micro example, maybe in just a meeting, but if you can get this long term in a project team, if you can find these sort of different hats, honestly, it will push those teams to think differently and to innovate and be more creative because you have this wonderful, rich experience of diversity. And so I encourage you to consider all of these 7 points when you're looking to do these meetings in teams. If you're in a meeting, I would encourage you, if you're willing, to always have a diverse thinker there. Bring someone that has nothing to do with your project. Let them sit in and then allow them to have time to give you feedback. It will really, really push your projects forward. The next thinking framework is about feeling safe. And this is psychological safety. Your employees have to feel psychologically safe so that they can share ideas, experiment and fail, and take risks. And you can nurture this in different ways. Here's some examples that I think you could do. First, choose to value all ideas, no matter who it's from and what it is. So from the CEO to the intern and everything in between, every idea matters, regardless of who it comes from. This is really important. The next is to encourage experimentation and failure. So you want people to feel like they can push the boundaries and take risks and feel good about that, feel safe about that. And then remember that it's not about the outcome, but reaching the logical conclusion. So if we're working on a project together or an idea together, the goal isn't to get it to launch. That's what we think it is. And it's nice when it does, don't get me wrong there, but it has to reach its logical conclusion. So if an idea isn't solving a problem, it's not meeting the audience in whom you're solving for, then that idea should stop. It should be paused. If it's not going to work, don't try to force it out, right? So remember that it's okay to reach the logical conclusion. And knowing this actually is really good for our mindsets because then it's like, oh, I don't have all this pressure to try to force it out the door. So think about that. And then the last is encourage each of your employees to be those safe people. So I believe that culture is determined by every one of us. We can impact the culture just by each person. If I'm someone safe to you, then you will feel safe with me. And then you can be a safe person to someone else and so on. And so creating that sort of grassroots and journey of doing this is really important. So start this culture of safety by being someone safe for others. Next, and this is tied to safety, but you want your employees to feel free of judgment. Judgment shuts people down. When you share an idea, it's super vulnerable. And if you're not met with safety by being free of judgments, it will literally eliminate the sharing of ideas and risk taking. And so if I felt, say, and as an example, if I felt judgment in a meeting, I will be shut down for that meeting. In fact, I might be shut down for subsequent meetings following it. So it's really, really important that we protect the psychological safety of people by avoiding judgment. And so here's some ways you could do that. First is protecting your environment. So if you're in a meeting and you hear judgment and it's like, Leo, that's the worst idea I've ever heard. It's not going to work because of A, B, and C. Or Leo, we've tried that idea before and it didn't work. And I've had a history of this and I know all the reasons why it won't work. In that moment, if you're leading that meeting, you got to protect it. You're going to have like, hey, I understand that could be true, but let's just pause that for a second. You got to protect the environment. And you can protect the environment by either having people police it, or you can have fun things where that's a red card. If I hear judgment, red card, okay, you're going to have to take a time out maybe, or pause and just like hold on for a second. To protect the environment, really important. Second is to adopt this mindset of yes and. This is from improvisation. But yes and works like this. When you hear something, you suspend your own judgment on it, and you'll say yes and either in your head or out loud, and you then build upon the idea of what you just heard. So if I said, Chick-fil-A should go make robots, then as a yes and person, I'd be like, yes, and we should make robots that fly, right? It's that kind of mentality that helps us be free of judgment. It helps eliminate that from the conversation. And the last point of avoiding judgment is remembering that ideas are like plant seeds. When you plant a plant seed in the ground, you don't actually know what it'll become. You need to give it time and water for it to grow. And ideas are exactly the same way. So the concept of yes and doesn't say that that idea is going to go, we're going to go execute on that. The concept of yes and is allowing that idea, that person to have that safety, that time for that idea to grow and be nourished and developed. Next mentality is you want employees to embrace failure and risk taking. So when your employees feel safe and they feel free of judgment, this will enable them to do this. Failure gives us the gift of experience and rich learning. I think failure is awesome because you learn, and it's better to fail when it's in the innovation journey and when it's in a sort of protected part of the journey than when it's been launched out to the market. Failure allows us to learn and pivot, and it really is important. And then the second part is risk taking. So when employees feel safe and free of judgment, this will allow them to experiment and to try new things. You want your employees to have the confidence and the courage to fail and not be reprimanded. And in fact, I think they should feel like risk taking is celebrated. You could have like failure parties or risk taking parties. Because when they do this, it will likely lead to more innovative solutions. Think about this. If you don't encourage this type of failure, risk-taking, experimentative culture, the ideas that your employees pitch probably will never be very disruptive. And in fact, if they're afraid of failing, they will never pose ideas or solutions that will push the boundaries. They're going to suggest things that are safe. They're going to propose things that they foreseeably can accomplish. And I don't think that any of us want that type of culture in this day and age. When we want innovation to be thriving, we don't want that type of culture. So really embrace this concept of failure and risk taking in your organization. So I want you to think about this. How will you encourage these 5 thinking frameworks in your organization? The last building block that I'm going to talk to you about today is about space. At Chick-fil-A, we have an innovation center called Hatch. It's a 30,000 square foot facility that is dedicated to innovation. This is what I call the Hatch corner. This is what you see when you round the corner and come into our building. But we have this space, and it's a testament of our dedication to innovation at Chick-fil-A. Here are some of the primary functions of Hatch. It's a making space where ideas can take shape and form. It's essentially a prototyping place. It's a collaborative space for project teams to get together and think together with diverse thought to work on things. And third, it's a place where you can learn about and apply innovation. In 2018, I had the pleasure of redesigning Hatch to be the space that I'll show you today. But I really wanted to create a place where it inspired creativity, it encouraged collaboration, it was a place where you could prototype, and it was a place where you could learn about and apply innovation. And I believe that Hatch is one of the primary driving forces for the thriving culture of innovation at Chick-fil-A. I think this redesign really, really helped accelerate that growth. And I'll talk to you about this in more detail as we go along. So this is what happens when you come in. This is the first thing you see. You see that innovation process that I mentioned earlier. That's the first thing that you see because this is what it's all about at Hatch. And then you land in this place called the courtyard. This is the center of Hatch where I designed it so that it was the central choke point of the building. When you go to this courtyard, it's a place that you have to go to before you go anywhere else. And this was to increase the likelihood that you'd bump into people, network, share, and collaborate on the work. And I built Hatch to be really around our innovation process. So we have a space for understand, imagine, and prototype, and then a smaller space for validate and launch. And this was a very intentional design, but this is a place where you can actually learn about these different all the different things that are required in the innovation process, and then be able to surround yourself with the material and even have workspaces within each one. So this is the front of Understand. You can go in there, you can learn about it. I call it kind of like an innovation museum where you can kind of get the content, walk through as you need, be set up for success, and then your teams can meet in there when you're doing Understand sessions. This is in front of Imagine. This was my favorite room or space that I built. Really wanted it to be a place that was different, that inspired creativity, has higher wall heights to make our eyes look up. A lot of those psychological signals are really important for us when we're in a space like this. Want it to feel very different than a conference room, and so added mood lighting and everything to really make that enhance those things. This is the way that you get into that space. I call it like a light tunnel. I wanted this real significant physical transition from moving from the courtyard into Imagine. I wanted you to be thinking, hey, I'm going into a different space. It's a place of creativity. It's a world of possibility and so forth. Here's another shot in there. You can see there's an Airstream. That's another cue that there's something different. And everything in Imagine has whiteboards and everything's on wheels, so it's a super flexible space and all of that. And this is outside our prototype space. So here, when I talked about that Prototype 101 class, I would hold this in Prototype 101, in this prototype space. And this prototype space is a dual space. It's educational in nature, but it also is a place where you can actually make your prototype. So this is that space where employees can come in and then have the tools and resources that they need. It Imagine was the space that generally I would hold the experiencing innovation sessions. So again, I was tying Hatch to all the different components of innovation that I've talked to you today about. And then this is another shot from the courtyard. This is the bleacher area. So those TED Talks, I would always hold them right there in front of that screen and have our employees come to Hatch and be surrounded by innovation. And so a lot of the programming that I've done has always leveraged Hatch to be that vehicle for it. And this last photo that I'm sharing, this is on top of a shipping container. So our break area is made of a shipping container. And on top of that, there's a set of stairs that you can go up. And there's these 4 little individual workspaces. And you can sit up there, get your heads down, work done. But it's also a great view of top down, just gives you a different perspective. And it's a really nice view. And you also can see people kind of scrolling in and out of the break area as well. So this is a really nice sort of top down view of what that all looks like. So my last question to you today is, how can you create a space to inspire innovation? In closing, today I've discussed 8 building blocks that will help you build a thriving culture of innovation: structure, people, process, taxonomy, programming, communication, thinking frameworks, and space. If you do all of these well, you will have the building blocks of success to build a thriving culture of innovation. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you today. If you have any questions, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. That's my username, Leo Nelson Chan, all undercase. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.